What if the most valuable lesson about leadership and clear thinking were learned in the harshest possible environment? Today's guest turned hardship, pressure, and a shattered past into a powerful framework for making smarter decisions when everything is on the line. Let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk and explore how resilience and discipline can help anyone turn even the darkest chapter into an extraordinary comeback story.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jollis.
Today's guest, Christian Torres, is a former NYPD officer who served nearly a decade in federal prison for a series of bank robberies, including 18 months in solitary confinement, where his mind was broken, rebuilt, and rewired to think in systems. He's now the director of business intelligence for a multi-million-dollar consulting firm and the founder of Stark Analytics, a decision intelligence company. Happy to have you with us and welcome to the show, Christian.
Happy to be here, Rob. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. And I want to start with those 18 months in solitary confinement. Hope I'm not bringing you back to a dark moment here. But first of all, I didn't know that was illegal. But what mental habits or routines helped you hold on to clarity, let alone purpose?
Oof. Before we can get into that, I had to be broken down. The first couple of months were the worst. That was the time where I felt hopeless. I had no direction. I had been stripped away of everything that I thought made me who I am, my entire identity. And it's only through that process that I was able to then come out the other side and realize, well, if I am here as a product of all of my past decisions, then the only thing that's going to change the future is new decisions. And how do I actually make those? So for me, the books that I read, the information that I consumed, my daily routines, those became the foundation for the new person that I was building from scratch in that place.
Yeah. It's funny. We don't talk about this a whole lot, but the books that you read, I'm going to tell you a 30-second story that I've never, ever told on the air. But I worked with a person, 25-year repeat offender, who was given one of my books and went on to, it's a seminar book, basically how to put on workshops and things. That's what he wanted to do, wrote his book in prison, came out, and he has been out for about 10 years. He's booked more than I am. They made a movie off of his book. So, but little things that you throw out there, like just simply reading and getting books, I think people underestimate when we're on the outside and it's all around us and all we have to do is grab one off a bookshelf. For you, it's a little more complicated.
Yeah, I joke that that's the one thing I miss about that place is how much time and clarity I had in order to dedicate to the practice of reading, meditating. And you can still do that today, but you have to be a lot more disciplined. You have to find a way to inject those things in this busy world that we live in. There, I had plenty of time. And that is what I did to feed my mind to the point where I was comfortable living inside of my own head. And a lot of people are just not there yet. The silence is scary. That when you're just by yourself and you can't actually lean on the crutches like technology or other people, it's just you versus you. That's when things get scary, but that's also when you can actually find the best version of yourself.
Right. As a kid, were you a kid? My parents always said this to me. I was the youngest of four. They always go, that one, as they point to me, that one, he idles well. Okay. Meaning I could just kind of function on my own and find things to do. Were you naturally a guy who idled well, or did you have to learn that too?
No, I think I was always that way. My mom would have called it, he's very independent, right? Low maintenance. She didn't have to help me with my homework. She didn't have to entertain me. She didn't have to find things for me to do. I kind of was able to do that on my own.
Well, I think that's a blessing for the both of us, or certainly for
Yeah.
you in that situation. Not that it couldn't be learned, but it's nice to have a head start. And you were given a head start. Now, you went from federal prison to running business intelligence for a multi-million dollar firm. What's the skill nobody talks about that actually makes this kind of comeback even possible?
Systems thinking. Now, for me, it started because I was living inside of my own head and I had no tools. I didn't have ChatGPT. I didn't have the internet. I didn't have a notebook. Like I had nothing. So I had to imagine what the future would look like, how I would get there, connecting the dots and playing out mental scenarios. That exercise primed my mind so that when I got out of the hole, right, solitary confinement, I got a job at the prison factory and they put me in front of a computer working on Microsoft Excel. Microsoft Excel, this tool that a lot of people hate, right? The accountants use it. Nobody really knows why every business needs to have it. But for me, it became my creative medium. It became the place, a blank canvas where I could just build logical systems with inputs. And I loved it. I developed a passion for it and I never looked back. I started diving into statistical analysis. I started building out forecast models. I went into like quality control, technician training, Lean Six Sigma. I just completely nerded out. And that became my world and my passion because it made sense to me that I can actually structure using defined like inputs. Like if I change this cell, everything else changes. It was a ripple effect. It was like magic. And I realized that our lives are the same way. If you change one variable today, that can change what your life is going to look like 10 years from now. And a lot of people don't take the time to really play that out and think about what would your life look like if you just modified one thing.
That's incredible. You're actually talking to that audience. I always look at Excel and pretty much crossed my eyes
Mm-hmm.
because, I use PowerPoint, I use Microsoft Word, and then there's this Excel thing. And I was scarred back in the 80s when we had to do I traveled a lot and we had to do all our expense reports on these spreadsheets, which that was the end for me. When I got free of those expense reports, I vowed never to go near it again. But the way you're describing it is, I'd never thought of it that way, of the threads that connect, because that doesn't happen in Word or PowerPoint. That only
Mm-hmm.
happens in Excel.
Yeah. You
That's
can
in,
simulate so many different scenarios. And that's exactly the field of decision intelligence is actually pretty new. This didn't exist before. It's only now that we're combining data analytics, business intelligence, and AI with human decision making frameworks to create this field known as decision intelligence, which is how we use all of those tools to make better decisions. And you can only do that if you actually take the time out to think about the framework and the process that you use to make those decisions. So the data, that's just one input, right? The AI, that's just a tool, a layer, but it's the human system, your mind, your operating system, combined with all of those that allows you to make decisions that are going to like get you where you want to be 18 months from now, 2 years from now, et cetera.
sound very analytical in nature. I'm assuming you've always been this way, or did you just develop that habit while in prison?
That's the weird part. I was not that way before. Before prison, I was an adrenaline junkie, right? I mean, the fact that I committed the crimes I did, right? And the profession that I chose running towards the danger, I was never a mathematical like genius. I didn't like math in school. My mom always told me that I was going to become a lawyer or something like that. It was not how I was wired, but it was that time spent alone in that cell that primed my mind to think about, well, I need to be able to connect these dots. Excel just happened to be the medium that I
Right.
used when I got the opportunity to start translating those thought patterns, that way of thinking, into a tool that can help me organize those thoughts.
It's really fascinating. It's almost like, I played a lot of basketball. It's almost like you're a right-handed player and you had to learn how to use your left hand. You had to learn the other side. Doesn't come natural. Doesn't mean we can't do it. And we can get very good at it. Might take a little longer than most people, but you had time on your hands there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's fascinating. I worked for Xerox for a number of years, and I've been on my own for 33 years as a professional speaker. But at Xerox, I was a manager and a supervisor. I didn't do anything on my own. I was like Captain Picard, just make it so. I had administrative support. When I went out on my own, I had to learn the other side. Whenever I would take the Myers-Briggs test or DISC, I was off the charts low on analytical. I mean, I practically went below the line, just had no interest in it. But for me, it was survival. And I had to learn how to use that other hand. I had to learn how to go to my other side. I'm left-handed, by the way, so I had to learn to go to my right. But it's funny what happens when you're put in situations like that. You can learn it. I want to go back to that decision intelligence, which is interesting. What's the one decision that most leaders get wrong about that, and why?
I would say it's how to use the tools that they have, because a lot of people jump to the question and they're looking to the tools to say, okay, which tool is going to answer the question? That's the framework. Everybody's thinking, what tool do I need to answer this question that I think is going to get me where I want to go? And the problem, the flaw in that approach is that now with AI and all the advanced analytical tools that are available, you have Power BI, Tableau. I mean, there's so many tools out there that you can use. We are swimming in answers, but we forgot what the question really was about. And so the exercise of asking yourself a simple question, why are we even considering making this decision? Everybody says, well, we want to increase sales, 10%. Okay, great. So how do we do that? They jump to that point, but they never actually stop to consider, is that a good idea? Like, why do we feel we need to grow at all? Maybe staying where we are is actually the right answer. Maybe we need to downsize. And so taking a step back before you actually inject the tools, the data, the PowerPoint, the Excel sheet, and going back to the basics and saying, hey, why are we actually even trying to change anything at all? Just that question alone can change everything.
Yeah. You'd actually make we used to call ourselves at Xerox Zeroids. You'd make yourself a really good Zeroid because when and again, this is the 80s and 90s, but Xerox was getting its clock cleaned by the Japanese that were embracing quality. They were embracing problem solving, which is somewhat what you're describing right now. But the funny thing is, I used to teach quality for Xerox. We could teach you a process for brainstorming and how to arrive at a solution. But one of the dangers was that people usually had the solution they were obsessing on, and they would mentally go back and basically build a path to that solution. And that's not problem solving. And that's where it all goes wrong. You have to be willing to throw out every idea and prove the problem even exists, and then begin to expand and contract around it, which is what you're describing. But yeah, we learned that in quality, but we'd actually trick our trainees and give them simulations where the solution looked very easy, and then watch them meet for a few hours to arrive at that easy solution, and then show them another solution that was literally 10 times better, and have them and question, why couldn't you see it? Why couldn't you find it? Because you never really problem solved. You just tried to prove your case.
Yeah. And so right now, AI is everywhere, right? I mean, you use it, I use it, your viewers are using it, but I started using it in a very different way. There was a book that I read, one of the many, while I was incarcerated, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, there is a chapter where he talks about this process that he would go through, and he would close his eyes. He would imagine he was like in his library, and he would surround himself with the brilliant minds of his time. Ford, Carnegie, Edison, Lincoln, all the brilliant minds that he wished he had at that table, literally giving him counsel. And those minds, those identities would pressure test his ideas. And so he would bring something to the council and they would question him. They would hammer him. They would basically force him to rethink the very core and the foundation of why he was even asking that question to begin with. And I said, that is powerful. And that is what I think AI can help us do. It's not supposed to be an answer machine. It's not supposed to be, hey, give me this thing. Yes, sir, right away. You're going to get a lot of garbage out of that. Instead, using it to like red team or pressure test your ideas. And if you can like actually orchestrate the right kinds of questions from the right perspectives, it'll ask questions that you never thought of asking. And that's going to change your decision-making process.
Yeah. I met with somebody once who had this idea. I thought it was a brilliant idea. I had that idea for about a year, and this guy was like a master coach. And we met, and I said, he said, "What do you think about it?" And I said, "This idea, it's the greatest idea I've ever had." He laid it out, and I'm telling you, I thought I looked at it from every angle, and he just simply said, "What a great idea!" He said, "Now, if you were in a debate and you were arguing against that idea, what would you say?" And immediately, it was like, "Well, I'm going to need funding here. You're not going to get support of it." Immediately, this dam opened up so wide that one of the things that I came up with in 10 seconds actually killed the idea. I mean, it made the idea not possible. Now, how did I go a year thinking about it, dreaming about it, writing about it, planning it without seeing it? And I think what it is we just put blinders on, which is why systems that you're talking about and processes that are repeatable and predictable are so important, or we'll get fooled by this brain.
Yeah. I mean, every decision that a business makes is, I would say, at least 90%, maybe not every. You've got a couple of one-offs. Most of the decisions you make, you're going to have to make again, right? Whether it's hiring, expansion, product development, RFPs, selecting, new vendors. You're going to have to do that over and over as you grow. And when you're starting off, some of those things you're going to do organically. You're just going to use your guts, right? The leader is going to make the call and we're going to follow through and that's it. But as you grow, you need to be able to make those decisions over and over again in a repeatable, scalable fashion. And so being able to map that out and intentionally design your decision system to introduce pressure, tension, to be able to ask us to force those questions and those points that are going to make that process conform not to what you think should happen, but the reality, the situation. That is way more powerful than saying, "Oh, don't worry, we have smart people. We'll let them figure it out." That only works for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why we need accountability partners. We need people that will look at what we're doing, because really I could put myself on a lie detector test. I'm not lying to myself. It's the perfect idea. I've looked at it from every angle. I'm sure you have. But when you get somebody else to look at things with fresh eyes, it's unbelievable what they see. You know something, and I really want to pay you a compliment. What you're describing right now is a major stumbling point for people, because people, when life hits them the wrong way, become victims. And no matter what it is, well, they gave me the keys to the bank. I mean, well, they taught me how to be. I'm sure there's a way to explain your situation, but I haven't heard that. What I've heard you explain is how you've evolved from that situation. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to get it right the first time. We're just supposed to not blame it on everyone else and figure out what we could do better. And you walk the walk and talk the talk. It's impressive. You built your life from the back up. What principles from this process that you've applied to your life, and let's get at that, that you could teach others who are trying to start over as well?
I would say the discipline to have an actual system for your life. Now, some people call it a morning routine. I don't limit it to that, because it could be a nighttime routine. It could be an all-day routine. It could be a weekly process. Whatever it is, give yourself the same care and respect that you would give some of these fancy supercomputers. We are so impressed by ChatGPT and we're so impressed by what technology can do. Your brain dwarfs any of the technology that's available today. Your brain is a supercomputer beyond anything you could ever understand or compare it to in the marketplace. And yet, we don't actually give it that respect. So, our bodies and our minds, if you intentionally design your day to feed those, you're going to be shocked at all the things that you can do, your productivity, your creativity, all of the, your success in whatever it is you're trying to achieve, whether it's weight loss, financial stability. Take care of yourself first before you do anything else. And then your supercomputer, your body, your mind will be actually running at tip-top shape to be able to do all the other things. You wouldn't try to rely on an old computer that hasn't had an update in 10 years to run a business off of. So why are you going to run your body and your mind into the ground and then expect great things out of it?
Yeah, makes sense. And it's how we talk to ourselves. Uh, How long did it take when you finally got put in prison for you to start talking to yourself respectfully? In other words, I'm sure that you were angry, maybe angry at the system, but at some point angry at you. Okay. Well, okay, but we can only function for so long, flogging ourselves wherever we walk. We are where we are right now. How were you able to transition and forgive yourself in a sense so that you could evolve?
I was blessed to have some really, really good, strong men that were in there that were able to mentor me and guide me. And surprisingly, the people that were most helpful and instrumental in that journey were some of the folks that didn't even have a light at the end of the tunnel. These were gentlemen that were older in age and were probably going to live out the last of their days in that place, but they had perspective. They had reflected on their life. And I remember one gentleman, I told him, I said, when I get out, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to study software engineering. And he said, Christian, you are already at the place where when you get out, you can hit the ground running. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with school, but you have enough in you right now, experience, potential, intelligence. You have the ability to go out there and start building something meaningful. If you're going to take any kind of educational course, be very specific. Don't just go back and make the mistake that people make. And, I'm going to go to school for 4 years and hopefully I get a piece of paper that gets me a job. He said, your mind is already wired for systems, for programming. You've got the skills. Go out there and just start doing the thing. And if you need help along the way, education is going to be changing. He already saw this coming. He said, education is going to change with YouTube and all the access to courses online. You don't need to find a building to go sit down and listen to lectures. You need the actual feedback from the real world. You need to get your hands in there and start doing things. When you get out of here, you're going to have resources that you never even dreamed of. Go and use it. I said, wow, okay, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And that's what I've been doing ever since. Everything's self-taught. If I need to learn something, I will find the resources. But you learn by doing. You learn by getting in there, experimentation, trying. And that's where you actually build up those skills the organic way.
You don't seem like a guy who's terrified of failure.
It's happened too many times. I'm not failing.
You're numb.
Yeah. Oh man. This is Stark Analytics is not my first business. This is not my first job, not the first setback. For any adults out there that have been through a divorce, so shutting down businesses, going through divorce, prison, health scares. At this point, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to appreciate every single day. And I do. I love the life that I have now. I love being able to wake up and do the work that I do, the people that are, I'm surrounding myself, and it's getting better every single day. And I adopted actually that exact phrase. I say it over and over. I say, you know what? It's only going to get better. Today's good, but it's only going to get better.
Yeah. Well, and you earned the right to say that because it's not like you're sitting there, looking out the window. You're out there functioning, you're working, you're trying things. Uh, it's going to sound like I'm blowing smoke at you, but I've always thought that I consider you a wise person, and that's the smoke part. But let me explain. I don't need to talk to somebody who's had nothing but success thrown at them. I think it's wonderful. I wouldn't mind trading seats with you, but I'm not necessarily going to consider you a wise human being. And I don't know if there's a lot of value to talk to somebody who's had nothing but failure thrown at them. But when you've had a mix like you've had, and you're a pretty cerebral guy, you're trying to figure out, okay, that worked, why? Okay, that didn't work, why? Well, it just sort of comes to reason that as long as you're not 9 years old, you're going to become more wise. That's what those mentors, I think, earn their right to be the chief in the teepee. They've been through the success and failure, and they can explain what they got out of each, and that's how we acquire it.
Yeah.
It's
One of the questions I get often in podcasts is if you could, rid the world of one thing, or if you can rid yourself of one thing, or if you can tell people that, what's the one thing they should change about themselves, all different versions of the same question. I say scarcity mindset is the most dangerous, cancerous, toxic thing in humanity, because without scarcity mindset, there would be no crime, there would be no wars, there would be no disagreements over resources, there would be no hoarding, there would be no social classes. Scarcity mindset is the thing that actually keeps us trapped. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go out there and try to build a life for yourself. Yes, there is a marketplace, there's competition, but the moment you allow yourself to operate in that realm, all of a sudden everybody's against you. The market's out to get you. The customers, they're trying to get over on you. Nobody wants to pay you what you're worth. It's the system. It's this. You start blaming everybody. When you shift that to an abundance mindset, a growth mindset, all of a sudden, everybody out there in the world, listen, they're doing their best. They're doing what they need to do. And your job is to do your best. And you don't worry about what other people are doing or saying or thinking about you. You just live your life the way that you want to be proud of at the end of the road. That's all you need to do. And great things will come.
Right. Well, you just answered my last question, because I was going to ask you if somebody felt trapped by their past mistakes, what's the first move forward? And I think I just heard it. So I'll try and highlight a second point. I don't want to run through that mentor message that you delivered. I think people think, why would I need a mentor? Even the successful ones. I've never met anybody who's successful 7 days a week, every day of the year. It's common. It's a real fast story, but when my kids were 10, 11, and 14, we had a fire in our home. No one was hurt, no one was harmed. But we were out of the house for about a year. I mean, it was a good fire. And I always look back on it with kind of a wry smile, because I got to mentor my kids through life. Life will punch you in the nose. I don't care how nice a person you are. The first time you get punched in the nose is pretty frightening. Second time you get punched in the nose, you're not quite as, well, a little blood comes out, I take to wipe it, and and I make sure I look the other way next time. But we learn from it. It's just common. That's what makes a mentor. Are you mentoring people yourself?
That's a great question. And no, I am not. I think that I'm at that point right now where I'm just coming into this new chapter. Before this, I wasn't doing any podcasts. I wasn't doing speaking engagements. I was living my life in my lane, right? I was a successful employee. I had started building my side hustle on, doing Excel work and analytics. And then everything changed with AI. And I realized, wait, this market is shifting. What does that mean for me? And as I started getting more comfortable talking about the darker sides of my story, I've been getting some feedback saying, hey, you know what? You have a lot to share, not from an entertainment perspective, but life experience. And I think that what I'm doing now is actually taking the first step into what eventually will become the possibility of like one-on-one mentorship, because first of all, I have to get comfortable talking about how I got here, the why, the messy parts of the journey. And as I share that with more and more people, I can tell you this: if someone were to say, I would love to, get your advice or help on something, I'm always up for that. Like, I meet with people, and the first thing I say is like, well, how can I help you? Like, what can I do to support you? Whether it's you need somebody to hear you out on your pitch, your idea, give you some, guidance on that, but it's never been formally structured as like a mentorship relationship.
Well, okay, let's pretend somebody's listening right now and they'd want to get a hold of you. How would they get a hold of you for something like that? Or just to hear more of your story and meet you?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, which is christiantorres.info. So that's my personal page. That's my speaker page. It's about more like the work that I'm doing now, christiantorres.info. Or if you're interested in learning about like the work that I'm doing with businesses and kind of seeing what that's about, then you can go to stark-analytics.com. And both of those have emails and contact forms, plenty of ways to reach me on there. I'm very responsive, and I love talking to people. So if you have an idea, need help with something, reach out. If I can help you, great. If I can't, I might know the person that can.
There you go. And by the way, if I could throw in, he also watches his LinkedIn file too, because that's how you and I met. So he's Christian Torres, and I'm going to just spell it out. It's CHRISTIANTORRES. So just to make, because the computers are kind of finicky about correct spelling, as we both know. Listen,
Yes.
been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I'm very selective of who I have on this show because I want stories like yours. I want people to be inspired and motivated by guys like you. And next time I speak to you, I want to hear about the mentoring a little bit because I think, I just think you're a natural. We just have to, begin to get some people to check you out. But absolute pleasure, and I congratulate you. I didn't get into the other side of it. I'm sure that's quite a story in itself. Not that I didn't want to, but I find this more interesting. I'd rather know what you do with the punch in the nose, and you've done plenty. Keep fighting, and congratulations. Thanks so much for being on the show.
No, thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.